Jake adjusted his headphones, the worn leather creaking softly. Rain lashed against the windows of the WSPR booth, blurring the lights of Harmony Springs. His fingers danced across the mixing board, a relic of a bygone era. The station was a museum of vintage radio equipment. Vacuum tubes glowed warmly in the dim light. Jake felt a connection to the old station, a sense of history whispering through its wires. Tonight, however, the whispers seemed louder. He glanced at the clock, its face illuminated by a flickering bulb. Almost midnight. Time for his weekly dedication show, a graveyard shift tradition. Withers was gone now, but Jake could still feel his presence lingering. He always said WSPR had a heart, a soul. Tonight it felt like it might have a ghost too. The storm raged outside, a symphony of wind and rain battering the old building. Static crackled through the speakers, sharp and sudden, making Jake wince. He adjusted the dials, his brow furrowing. Strange. The static seemed to be coming from the microphone, even though it was switched off. He leaned closer, listening intently. There it was again, a faint whisper beneath the static, a voice barely audible. Goosebumps prickled his skin. Taking a deep breath, he reached for the microphone, his fingers brushing against the cold metal. As he did, the whispers intensified, morphing into a low growl. He jerked his hand back as if burned. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. The temperature plummeted, sending a shiver down Jake's spine. He felt a presence behind him, cold and oppressive. It whispered his name, a rasping breath against his ear.
Jake!
He spun around, his eyes wide with fear. Standing in the doorway was a figure, tall and gaunt, with eyes that glowed with an eerie light. He recognized the silhouette. It was his brother, Daniel. Daniel, who had died 10 years ago in a car accident. The accident Jake always blamed himself for. His brother's voice, laced with an unearthly echo, sent chills down his spine.
It's your fault, Jake.
The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation and despair. The figure flickered, then vanished, leaving Jake alone in the cold, silent studio. The phone on the console jangled, the shrill ring piercing the silence. Jake jumped, his hand trembling as he reached for the receiver. Jake, WSPR, you're on the air.
You shouldn't be here, Jake. Leave now while you still can.
The voice was filled with an urgency that sent a shiver down his spine. Jake, who is this? What do you want?
You know who this is. This station, that it holds secrets, Jake. Dark secrets, and they're not meant to be unearthed.
A clicking sound and then silence. The line went dead. Jake stared at the phone, his mind racing. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. The witching hour. He had to get out of there. The phone call, his brother's ghostly apparition, the strange occurrences, they were all connected somehow. He could feel it in his gut. WSPR held a dark secret, and he was determined to uncover it. His gaze swept across the room, finally landing on the reel-to-reel tape players in the corner. Old Man Withers' pride and joy. He strode over to the players, their metal casings cold beneath his touch. A single reel was loaded onto one of the machines, its label faded with time. He squinted, making out the handwritten words, "Midnight Broadcast." Intrigued, he hit the play button. The speakers crackled to life, and a voice filled with static but strangely clear filled the studio. It was a recording of a man's voice, frantic and desperate. He spoke of a storm, much like the one raging outside, and of a presence, a being of immense power, trapped within the very walls of WSPR. The voice on the tape spoke of a ritual gone wrong, of a gateway opened, and a being of pure energy pulled from the ether. It spoke of the being's rage, its desire to escape its confines and wreak havoc upon the world. The voice pleaded with whoever was listening to destroy the tape, to prevent history from repeating itself. Then, a chilling sound like nails scraping down a chalkboard cut through the speakers. The voice on the recording changed, morphing into a guttural growl. It was the same voice Jake had heard earlier, the same voice that had whispered his name.
You cannot hide from me. I know you're there, Jake. And when I escape this prison, I will be free to finish what I started. And you will help me.
Fear coiled in Jake's stomach, cold and tight. He had to stop it. He had to destroy the tape, break the cycle. He fumbled for the stop button, his fingers clumsy with terror. The machine whirred to a halt, plunging the studio into an eerie silence. The silence was shattered by a deafening crash. The window behind him imploded, shards of glass spraying across the room. A gust of wind, icy and unnatural, roared into the studio, swirling around him, pulling him towards the shattered window. He could feel the entity's presence, strong and malevolent, reaching for him. He grabbed the reel of tape, its smooth surface cold beneath his fingers. With a surge of adrenaline, he ripped the reel from its spindle, snapping the fragile tape. He threw the pieces onto the floor and stomped on them, his heart pounding in his chest. He would not be a pawn in its game. He would not let it escape. The wind died down, the studio falling silent once more. The air, no longer thick with menace, felt lighter, cleaner. Jake stood panting, his chest heaving, the broken tape at his feet. He had won, hadn't he? He glanced at the clock. 12:01 a.m. The witching hour had passed. He was safe, he hoped. As he turned to leave, a faint sound caught his ear, a low hum emanating from the speakers. It was barely audible, but it was there. The hum of a reel-to-reel tape player slowly winding back to life. He was wrong. It wasn't over, not even close.